So again, thanks everyone for joining today. My name is Jason Cruz. I'm the undergraduate engagement librarian at Northwestern University, and I am on the academic outreach committee. To start off with, let's just do a round of introductions. Let us know your name, your title, and the institution you're from. Maybe we'll start with Brannon.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Cool. I'm Brannon Varner. Right now, I am a research and instructional services librarian at, at the University of Memphis.
Great, thank you. Cynthia?
Hi, I'm Cynthia Dopp. I am a cataloging and electronic resources librarian for Siena Heights University.
Elizabeth?
Hi, it's Liz. Technically, I guess I'm head of circulation at the University of Michigan Flint, but I do a lot of instruction duties as well as our outreach.
Gary?
Hello, I'm Gary Marks, reference and outreach librarian at William Patterson University in New Jersey.
Welcome. Kristen?
My name is Kristen Kroger. I am reference, instruction, and outreach at Broward College here in Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
Megan?
Hi there, I'm Megan Benson. I'm the instructional outreach librarian at Binghamton University in Binghamton, New York.
Sarah?
Hey, my name is Sarah DeSantis. I am a reference and research librarian at USC Upstate, and I'm also in charge of the social media and outreach at the library.
And Teresa?
Hey, I'm Teresa Nesbitt. I am at the University of North Georgia, and I'm a reference services and instruction librarian and also on the marketing committee.
Great. Well, again, welcome everyone. And just to start off with, so the topic is developing your outreach plan. And I facilitated the discussion the other day. And the first question that came up after I asked my first question was, what is an outreach plan? So maybe let's start there and anybody can just jump in. What do you think an outreach plan is?
Well, it's a series of steps that you can take or actions that you can take to make sure that everyone in your community understands what resources you have, what availability you have of things. It's kind of the way I look at it, kind of a way to market yourself.
Anybody else?
I kind of took it as the series of events or kind of happenings on campus that you can either you're planning yourself or you're aligning your social media post to kind of drill into and kind of piggyback on the rest, what else is going on campus.
I mean, for me, my outreach planning has been more of, I guess, aligned with what I would call strategic planning of kind of like the institution's mission. So for me, it's like broader range where I want to focus my immediate outreach goals, and then secondary, third. So my outreach planning, I guess, has been broad-based. We're student first, working upwards to faculty on campus, and then also where my outreach extends to the community and beyond. And then those specific things I look at is like, that's kind of the execution of the plan where I attend marketing events and things on campus with student groups. But for me, it's more like the strategic, where does my outreach need to be prioritized first, and then moving from there.
Great. Anybody else want to add anything? So yeah, I think those are all really good explanations. I don't think there is really a right or wrong answer in this case. when I've seen outreach plans, they kind of embody a lot of the things that all of you said. So starting from there, how many of us here have maybe a formal outreach plan in their libraries?
I do not. Sorry, this is Kristen. I do not.
Kind of going along what Gary said, we have a strategic plan for the marketing committee that we kind of rewrite every year to redefine our goals and objectives. But the focus isn't just on outreach, so it's just the direction of the committee in general, but a lot of our annual plan focuses on outreach.
We don't have anything that is concrete. It's just the series of steps that we've always taken. I'm trying to see if we can't reimagine how that all works.
We do not have one at Memphis.
Yeah, and I'm a pretty much a one-woman show up at Flint, so it's all in my head at some point in time, but it's not formally written down.
I think that's a really good point to make. Here at Northwestern, I've been doing this job where my title has been either outreach or engagement for 7 years. And I work really closely with a colleague of mine and have been for those 7 years. And we just the other day were saying, as we were preparing for this discussion, we should probably write down our outreach plan that is all just in our head. And I think it gets really easy to just have it in your head as things are happening. And like for the most part, we're fine because we know when things happen and what we need to do. But now we're growing in our department, and other people need to know. So yeah, it's even though we've been doing it a long time and we know what we're doing, it still helps to write it down at some point. So for those of us who don't have an outreach plan, how do you tend to manage your outreach activities or programs throughout an entire year?
At Memphis, we have a outreach associate. So she is staff, and she has really taken the lead on making sure people show up to, resource fairs or new student orientations. And she sort of pulls faculty and other staff members into that. But so it's pretty much her doing everything.
Yeah, our head librarian does a lot of it and has for so many years. So I'm new to this campus. I'm just trying to figure it out.
Yeah, we have, since it's just me, we still have, I'm able to go around to most of the events on campus, but we've got a new archivist who actually wants to be involved with stuff. So trying to loop her in. Though she's about to go on maternity leave, so that will take a backseat until she's probably back in the fall. But there's these recurrent events that we do every year, so we know they're coming. We know approximately when they start, but it's kind of finding those new avenues that I'm struggling with to try and figure out how can I go do more and reach out to our students that way.
I guess I'm a bit lucky. I'm a one-man show here too, but I'm a bit lucky because I've been here. I've been familiar with the university for quite a number of years, but I'm also lucky that I'm defining the position of outreach librarian because I'm the first to hold it. It was fairly newly created, so I've been blessed with the opportunity to kind of like define what the position is and establish the goals for it. So I guess part of a written plan is like basically my annual report and goals that I establish for the year is kind of our outreach plan. Mostly it's just what my position is going to be doing, not exactly what the library is, that I align with our mission. So that's been a benefit.
For me, this is Kristen again from Florida. As I said, we don't have a plan. I am the outreach librarian, and I have been, I'm going on my 2nd year, so I'm still relatively new. And I also am the first. I'm the first outreach librarian they've had, so I am kind of making it up as I'm going along. And I kind of, when we meet, there is a committee of people from all over the library that meet once a month, and we basically take the school calendar and look where we can insert ourselves or what programs we can program. So like, for instance, we have Welcome Back that happens in the beginning. And at the end of the semester, we have de-stress week. We also celebrate National Library Week with a literary festival in the spring. So we just basically take the calendar and go month by month as to what's coming up. At least on our campus, we had political we had a debate that was actually happening here on campus with congressmen. And so that was a big thing that happened on our campus. So of course we're planning events around that. So it as I said, I'm making it up as I'm going along, but I basically take the calendar and break it up and see how we can plan events to meet the students' needs or get where they are.
I'm in the same boat as Gary and Kristen. And another thing that I do, in addition to looking at the calendar, is that we have a daily campus-wide email. And a lot of times they'll have calls for participants like Welcome Week or whatever the case may be. So this was the first time we went to an admissions open house. And there was a bigwig, and I forget which bigwig that it was, but there was some bigwig who was like very impressed that the libraries were at this fall admission open house where they were trying to recruit new students. So I don't know if other campuses have a daily sort of email or newsletter kind of thing, but that's where I've found some stuff to insert myself.
So it sounds like, I'm sorry, Sarah, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say, for me, I'm a new librarian. I just got this position in April, and everyone at the library is just kind of telling me what we used to do. So that's kind of what I've been doing. And I've just been like, oh, we should do this too. So that's just what I'm doing right now.
So it sounds like a number of us here are in newer positions, or maybe it sounds like multiple positions, which is not uncommon, where everybody is doing 2 or 3 jobs at once. So yeah, I think that a lot of the things that you all described, inserting yourself, finding out where you belong, or figuring out what you had done in the past. Our department is academic engagement, and it's sort of just been newly reformed, and the head of our department is very big on saying, let's not totally focus on what we just done, which I think is good advice. And we tend to follow that all the time. And in one case, so like some of the things that Kristen mentioned about, Welcome Week and all of these activities, that sort of flagship things that happen throughout the year. But then you have all these other things inserted here and there where you're trying to show up to events on campus just to be seen and build awareness of the library. It can get a little unruly, and the calendar term is something that I hear associated a lot with outreach plans, is just knowing what's on your calendar and building a calendar. If anybody's doing that, are there any tools that you particularly like, even if it's a Word document or a spreadsheet, or if anybody's using Slack or Trello to sort of manage these activities? Anybody want to talk about any tools they find really helpful?
This is kind of more on like a micro planning level than the macro of looking at the whole year. But we found, just for this past semester, we discovered this promotional plan calendar that was really helpful. And it's an Excel spreadsheet, and it's divided into 2 sections. So there's pre-event and then post-event follow-up. And so on the left-hand side, like the left-hand column is what channel you're reaching out to, whether it's like Facebook, Instagram, your university's email listserv. And then next to the channel, you'll kind of create a little schedule for when you'll release certain emails or posts. And then the next column will say who's responsible for that. And then the column after that, you say when you completed the task. And then the last column is just notes. So, and that was super helpful for us. We were organizing a brand new event, like a faculty author reception. We had no idea what we were doing. So just having that sheet where we all knew what we were responsible for, when certain emails were going out, what those emails would say, that was super helpful, just having a promotional plan for individual events.
You said you found this spreadsheet someplace. Where'd you find it?
I went to a marketing conference. Is there a way I could share it with the group?
Sure. You want to put it in the chat there? And
okay. It'll just take me a second to pull it up. And then I'll dump it in the chat.
And then we can add it to the follow-up notes as well.
We can keep going. Yes, I use Trello for the social media team. As part of one of the first things I did as the outreach librarian was create a social media team to coordinate all of our social media efforts, because it was just, to me, it just didn't make sense to have only one person doing that, because one person can't possibly know the ins and outs of every department and area that has a service entity in the library. So I compiled a group, about 5 or 6 librarians and staff from different areas, mostly would all have the service focus. So we use Trello to put together a calendar, and we meet quarterly where we plan out the entire semester's worth of posts and things that we want to plan. And I've set it up in Trello where it'll send the automatic notifications, and then I had to do a little fun work with Outlook to have those things automatically forwarded to the individuals who are assigned to those areas. But it's starting to we've only been doing it for semester and a half now. So each time we learn more from it, and we've been able to enhance it and adapt it. But it's starting to work pretty well, where we can actually plan out things and send regular notifications to people, so they just get an email new and say, you're supposed to post about this tomorrow. And they know that gives them that reminder to fill in on that.
We also use Trello. We use it for just tracking all of our engagement activities and programs throughout the year. We find it's really helpful to go at the end of the year when we have to write an annual report, and also our own performance reviews, and they're scattered every which way. It's a good way to look at what we've done throughout the year. But it's also it's a good way to let everybody know in our department. So we're not a very big department, but not everybody knows what the other people are working on. And in some cases, the person I work most closely with is pretty much knows everything I'm doing, but we have different activities that we're involved in all the time that just we don't happen to mention because it's things are just happening. And so it's a good way to keep everybody informed. Anybody else using any tools or methods that they really like or think are effective, or are not effective and want to warn?
Sure. We have been organizing ourselves actually through Canva. So even though it's not our central hub, being able to sort of copy and reuse certain posts for Instagram and Twitter, and tweak them for the next year or for the next event has been very useful and less cumbersome than trying to share an Illustrator file or Photoshop.
Anybody else?
Yeah, we also we have the Canva team set up. makes it much easier for the social media team anyway for posting. There's, I can think of it just the other day. We used it because we were posting hours for like extended hours, and there was an error on the post that went out that we designed in Canva. And if with having the team, somebody was able to go back in and edit it real quick and then repost it to social media to make the correction without having to send somebody an email over the weekend saying, "Can you fix that post?" So yeah, we use the shared teams on Canva, and definitely works well for social media anyway, for being able to repurpose things and organize all of our content.
I actually do a little old school, so it's specifically for social media. Chase's calendar of events is invaluable if you're looking for content, and it's ridiculous what some of the days are, but I definitely go through and look through that pretty much about a month in advance, and then I use the actual scheduling tools on TweetDeck and then Facebook posts, because I get slightly better engagement, I find, if I actually post it that way and schedule it that way. So
that came up the other day in the discussion about using sort of a calendar of world events and days that as sort of an inspiration for content, both in social media, but also in just exhibits, activities. I think that's a really good idea. Anybody else using anything that they want to share? Okay. So we talked a little bit about before how it sounds like a lot of people are doing this on their own or are in multi-roles. Any plans that you have, whether formal or informal, information that you're collecting about your activities or programs, how do you use that? Is it more for your own management of these activities, or is somebody in your library asking for the information?
So far, it's just for my management of the event, but we don't really do a lot of big events. Like we did our extended hours and therapy dogs, which are our two kind of hallmarks, and that's when we get a lot of students. But other than that, we don't have a lot. But I definitely turn them in during my annual review, and then there's a big push on not just the Flint campus, but the other our Michigan campuses to start doing overall assessment of the library with all the data that we're gathering. So I figure that it's going to play a larger role in the coming couple of years.
Yeah, we're very informal. We're just working off of the head librarian who's been here for decades, her internal clock on what she's done in the past. So I'm trying to formalize it. So I'm just trying to see what I can do.
I do a lot of, this is Gary again, post-event assessment. So every type of event or activity, whether it's a workshop, program, I usually have several iPads available with real quick digital surveys that I'll have students complete at the end of the events. I do a lot of events where I partner with student clubs and organizations, where I actually have the students from those organizations walk around and kind of get the peer assessment type surveys. I found they're much more successful in getting response rates than me walking around trying to poke an iPad at somebody to fill something out. But I use them. I use the assessments for building future events, for informing the quality of the workshop, especially when we have like multiple entities participating in something. Like we have something with counseling, health and wellness, IRT. We kind of do a lot of joint workshop events. So to try and give them feedback on what the students thought of their presentation. So I use a lot of that type of assessment to build future events, to find out what the students are thinking about how things are presented. And I leave some open-ended stuff, so we actually get feedback from students on what they'd like to see in the future. We get some qualitative data that helps out to things that we need to look at in the future for trying to develop new programs. So it helps out a lot. And then especially we have a program right now that we support with the civic engagement program at the university, where students can earn like badge credits. I don't know if anybody does these kind of micro badging type things. I started a civic literacy thing here where the library now participates in that. So it shows our direct involvement towards student engagement. So the more students I have participating in those things, they actually are tracked through a university system, and it reflects back on the library as well, which is very good for our upper administration, who are always asking, how can you quantify the library's contribution to student engagement? So that's been very nice, and I've been lucky to have some support for the upper administration to continue in that endeavor because they like the numbers.
Gary, you mentioned an institutional kind of thing that or system that you're putting into. Is that OrgSync? Because it's trying to be adopted on this campus and it's not working very well to track student attendance at different events.
Sorry, I forgot to unmute myself. No, we use it's through Campus Labs, which I think we've adopted and called it Pioneer Life. But it's basically a system that manages all of our campus activities and stuff. Student Government Association pays for it. So every student club and organization on campus has like a group profile type thing on there. And when there's events on campus that are deemed to be like civic engagement and level 1 or level 2 points or credit that you can go to, when the students go, they can swipe their ID and it will track them in that campus lab system. And for us, we track them here, and then we send a full spreadsheet list to campus activities so that all the students are given credit for their participation. We've done a few where we did a film screening of a movie about digital citizenship. We've had a talk from somebody from the UN to talk about global citizenship. So a lot of different things on civic literacy, civic engagement type related that the library's been involved in that the students can actually earn some type of credential for.
So that actually is a nice segue, the discussion of assessment of the programs helping to build for future programming, or in one way that we use it is to decide if we should keep doing things. And it's one of the things you mentioned, Gary, about that your administration likes numbers. And we track a lot of that too. Our administration is in full support, so they like seeing the numbers, but they support us no matter what, which we're very fortunate for. But we have been lately trying to collect over the last couple of years more qualitative data to see what the impact and try to build up what the goals of particular programs are. Is anybody else doing that, sort of building in outcomes or goals into their programming? And they don't have to be, I guess they could be in any case at the programmatic level, or let's say at the outreach plan level or strategic plan level, but also for individual events or programs.
My plan is to do that over the summer and have sort of like a curriculum map, but for outreach. And I got this idea from Texas A&M. They were at ACRL this year, and I believe they're publishing a paper on their outreach mapping project that they did. So I went and saw their talk, and my plan is to figure out every outreach event that we do, tie it into our university learning outcomes. And we don't have a strategic plan right now. So I will tie it into that plan when we get there, or use this as, hey, we should have instruction be part of our strategic plan, because right now it's not. And then think about the assessment piece of if we should keep doing something or not. And I haven't quite figured out that part yet, but I'm planning on doing that this summer.
This is sort of tangential, but in addition to strategic plan, the University of Memphis is getting reaccredited in 5 years. So I'm planning on looking at our SAC-COC credentialing and sort of trying to help push more qualitative data toward that in outreach too.
Anyone else want to share?
Sure, why not? Having a fun time. So I guess I don't have an overall goals for like each for like outreach in general. I think sometimes I just do it by individual activity or event. The only thing I've been trying to develop, that I've been working on developing, that's in kind of like the draft stage right now, that's actually, I was going to share it with the group in a second, is kind of along the lines with our civic literacy initiative. Part of our outreach, our university has a commitment to civic engagement. We're actually the first university in the state that has incorporated it into the academic curriculum, so that there are components in the academic curriculum that require students to complete civic engagement. So we started the civic literacy initiative, and I put together a framework that ties in with like the university's mission for civic engagement, the AACU civic engagement value rubric, and the ACRL information literacy framework. So we kind of put all those things together so that when we're doing those programs and events, we can align them with different aspects and different components of those ideals, to kind of demonstrate both the outreach, the library resources, and its commitment to civic engagement, all wrapped into one. And that's been going a long way with trying to get like faculty commitment to what we're doing, to definitely show the academic side of it, and that the goals and the framework of things are committed to those things.
Yeah, I've seen that at a number of institutions, sort of, sometimes just building it off a strategic plan or even a mission of the university or college to sort of just give it a frame that you can build it around. And I see it. I've seen it in a number of different ways. Really formal, sometimes just informal. Like it's in it's in my head, and I know these things, so I know what events to plan. So we've been trying to develop outcomes here, sort of overarching outcomes, but we do create outcomes for our bigger events, but even smaller things like even our pop-up library activities that we've done for several years, and they've always changed. We never found the sweet spot until just recently, moving from doing it in res halls to dining halls to the student center. What we found was really helpful to lay out what the goals were in order to determine success, because the numbers in themselves were fine. So for example, we'd do it for a week and we'd have 30, 40 people stop by and talk to us. But when we really looked at what the goals were, which were to increase traffic to research consultations, we weren't hitting it by a long shot. We were mostly getting, "Why are you here?" And like, "Can I check out a book from here?" So it was really not meeting our goals, and we were able to not scrap it, but just rethink it and move it into the library and focus more on helping people find their textbooks on in the first week. So that, over time though, that was, we didn't have that built in at first. It wasn't until we started doing it at our student center that we built in those goals and outcomes, so that we knew 40 people is great, but it was sort of meaningless because it didn't actually hit our goal. So it wasn't productive in that way.
I mean, how often do you, now you're on the topic of the pop-up libraries, which, we've been meeting with mixed results. So what's your kind of pop-up library structure look like? I guess, I mean, from nuts and bolts, like, do you have a big, thing that you take with you? Is it kind of backdrop, laptops type thing? How many people go? How often do you do it?
Yeah. Whatever
you're willing to share.
Sure, absolutely. So the latest iteration is we really focused it on affordability, and we we do it really simplified. We have a movable podium, we have a laptop, and we have a sign that says, I can't remember exactly what it says, but it basically gets at the idea like, "Hey, are you don't want to spend money on your textbooks? Come ask us about it." And we got a ton of traffic, and we set up right across from the Information Commons desk, so the main desk of the library. And we're still getting a lot of traffic. A lot of people who start walking by see the sign and go, "Actually, I do need a textbook." And we try to make it as contextual as possible, because we do it in the first week. We know people are coming in for classes. They know they need to get books. And so it makes it's sort of an easy lead. Now, we don't collect textbooks, a lot of textbooks, but there's books for class that aren't text necessarily. We found it a good way to promote course reserves. We found it a good way to promote interlibrary loans. So we really make it like, even if we don't have it in the library, you can still get it and from somewhere else. But we keep it really trimmed down. We only do it for the first, I don't even think it's the first full 5 days. I think it's just the first 4 days of the beginning of the quarter. Any other thoughts on outcomes or goals?
I found a pretty close similar template to the one that we use for our annual strategic plan that I'm dumping in the chat right now. And the one thing that this plan doesn't have that we include is for every goal objective, we have an evaluation standard as well. So even if it's something like create branding materials for the library, create a logo, we have some kind of evaluation for that outcome, whether we achieved it successfully. So we sort of just build the evaluation into our strategic plan every year.
So just to go back quickly to somebody mentioned the paper from Texas A&M, and I think the one that was referred to as mapping out a strategy, curriculum mapping applied to outreach and instruction. It's available through CNRL, but it should also be in the proceedings for the ACRL conference as well. So we mentioned flagship events, we mentioned activities that everybody kind of knows about, but we've also kind of touched on those activities where you want to insert yourself. Those often happen without much planning. Sometimes you only know about it in that week. So how does everyone handle those on-the-fly activities in terms of both planning, executing, all of that?
Most of the events that are kind of on the fly for us are, hey, can we do a tour of the library at the last second? Or I actually just got a call today for someone who wants to plan something for July. And I was like, yes, July! That gives me time. But we don't really get a lot of requests for kind of on the fly. Most of the people who want us at events, they do plan a little bit farther in advance. And we don't really have that many student fairs or anything. So it's a little bit easier for us to kind of figure out what's going on and to plan in advance.
We have 5 different campuses with 5 wildly different cultures, and we often have trouble communicating with each other. So I think a lot of those on-the-fly activities are just campus by campus, like a librarian sees an opportunity and jams their foot in the door and be like, hey, we're here, let us in to your event. And often the marketing committee doesn't know about those like smaller campus events, which has been a problem for us. We really struggle like communicating those things with each other.
So that is probably something we all run into at some point or another. Does anybody have any suggestions on the communication part of that, or sort of getting people on board with communicating these things, even if it's just like, hey, I'm going to this event today? Probably like assessment of outreach activities. Nobody has an excellent answer to our solution. One thing that, I mean, we sort of manage the majority of engagement activities here in our main library, and sort of in the branch libraries for that matter. But we don't have a stranglehold on it. We know that all librarians have opportunities to do outreach, are engaged with the campus in different ways. So we do the bulk of what we call here, which is not a good term, but non-academic campus unit outreach. So basically anything that's not an official subject-based department. So we do the majority of that, those building of relationships. But we also have librarians who participate with the campus in a whole slew of other ways. So what we still run into it from time to time. We never would say, oh, you're doing this, well, now we have to do that. It's more just like, hey, let us know, so we're not duplicating efforts here, so that we're just aware that these things are happening. And for the most part, we want all of our librarians to be engaged with the campus. And our department is really designed to help facilitate a lot of that. I mean, we do the bulk, but we want everybody to participate in that. And communication is still always a problem, because we find out things after the fact. We'll go and we have relationships with certain units, and then all of a sudden, somebody else is like, hey, I had a meeting with this department because I thought they'd be a good match. And it's like, hey, we've been working with them for 5 years, so cool. But so, how does anybody have any other suggestions on communication strategies, or do you have committees that focus on sort of just outreach or engagement?
We don't have any committees or anything like that, but communication, I have found, I started my position in August, and there's like no communication. So I've started an internal quarterly newsletter, and I just ask all of the heads of the departments or to say what their department is up to. And then I ask for anybody else working in the library, like, hey, what are you researching on? Hoping to connect people who might have similar interests. I've only done one issue. I'm working on my second one in the next couple of weeks, but so I don't know if I have a huge success yet, but I'm working on it.
Yeah, we're trying to do the internal newsletter too, just get people to share what they're working on, because otherwise we have no clue like what someone on a different campus is researching, or like what pet projects they have.
Yeah, we have we've a couple different things. First, I wrote in the chat bar here. I'm our co-curricular and extracurricular liaison. So I abandoned the term because the previous librarians here used non-academic, and I abandoned the term immediately. Because if you go over and you're trying to meet with people from campus activities or student development and start calling them non-academic, you're not going to get welcomed back. So they have to have a feeling that everything they do contributes to the all-around development of the students. So by starting to use that terminology, I found that I was getting a much more welcomed invitation to a lot of those areas, and we found a lot of great partnerships developed in that area of in the past year and a half. It's been fantastic. But as in communication, we publish a library newsletter. But as the coordinator of our liaisons, I've been transitioning us away from that traditional collection development mindset of the liaisons to now more outreach kind of focused communication. So we use a newsletter structure where I develop a template for the faculty, for template of a newsletter about library, instruction, things we got going on, resources and whatnot. And I provide a basic template to all the liaisons, and they customize it to their specific department. So if we have a new database that's focused on geography, urban studies, they just add that to it. And they're digital newsletters, so we can actually track and see how many faculty from the departments are opening it and viewing them. And we actually can see an uptick of when some of them go out. The next day we receive 4 or 5 requests for library instruction sessions. So it's been very nice. It's been very successful with our College of Education. They have a huge So they send that liaison. She sends them monthly. I usually try and do them like twice a semester, beginning and end type thing. And I develop a template that everybody can just build off of. They can send that out as they want because it'll have all the general information, or they can go in and put their special touch on it to their own individual departments. So that's been nice to work with. And we use S'more. I don't know if everybody knows what that is. I'll put the link in. Nobody here is from S'more. I could tell you, we kind of cheat the system. We have an individual account that I have because the institutional account's like $1,000 and the personal account is like $80. So I have my own personal account and technically I'm using it and I just send things to other people. But I'll put the link in there because yeah, it is really valuable because it's totally digital. It's easy for the faculty to check out. We don't overload it with content, and we can actually see if it's being read rather than asking for like email receipts and having them blown off. And usually I can make it more visually appealing than some drawn out email that we used to send out in the past. And I'll see if I'll put one in here so you guys can get a sample of what they actually sample of what one looks like.
I like that co-curricular or extracurricular. I think that's we haven't been able to come up with a good term. We don't use the term non-academic outside of our little department because we realize the implications of saying something like that. But we're always like, I don't know what you call this, but co-curricular, I like that. Yeah,
I officially made myself the liaison to co-curricular and extracurricular when I took over the liaison program. I was like, I'm just making it. And it's been great ever since. So I have a great with the vice president of student development, with the director of campus activities. I'm getting invited to all the meetings over there now. The library is now involved with a lot of those things. And that is a direct pipeline to the most engaged students on campus because they're the ones that are involved in all the clubs and organizations and student leadership. And once you get them, then you start getting that peer-to-peer, consultation where they start promoting the library for you. And there's nothing better than that.
I will say we had a couple of student government administrations ago. We had a really good connection with some of them and it was really powerful. Like they basically we had a 90-hour library event where we were open 90 hours straight. They provided all the snacks and kind of that stuff. But as the other administrations have kind of come through, they were doing it and then it's kind of slowly died off. So we're thinking about going back to we're a commuter campus, so we don't have a lot of residents even living close to campus. So we're thinking about dialing it back. But I like the extracurricular, co-curricular thing and trying to get in with the student clubs a lot. That's a really good idea.
Yeah, I have several events each semester that are co-sponsored by student clubs and organizations that are, they're integral to. I actually sit down and have them help plan the events. So I'll ask them questions so that to help build us the workshop content so we know what to focus on. And we had, the final exam prep where some that are subjects specific. We'll ask them, what type of homework assignments do you have? And then we start building the workshop around what we know the direct needs are rather than what we kind of guess they need. So it's been very valuable in that aspect. And I actually have been meeting with our athletics because those students are here in the summer. So they're here for summer camp for training in July and August. And the library is empty and they have a lot of empty hours in the day. So we've been looking at new partnerships where we can actually start even testing some of our instruction sessions on those groups, or in a lot of cases having different type of library workshops with them during the summer so that they have a leg up before the semester begins. Had a very nice conversation with the football coaches who are fully on board with trying to get that worked in the summer.
So we're at about 9 minutes left, and I just want to throw it open now. Is there anything that somebody really wanted to ask or to discuss? Now would be a good time.
I have a question. Most of the conversations or comments that I've heard today have been addressing outreach to students, but I was wondering if any of you have plans to outreach to faculty. And if so, what are they? And I'm thinking of starting small and like new faculty. We have it's a long story, but anyway, that's my question. Outreach to faculty.
So I can speak from experience. We go to new faculty orientation. They are just as overwhelmed as the students are, so that's a little hit or miss. But we've definitely, in the last couple of years, tried to make our liaisons, which our liaison system is a little weird. Like there are 10 librarians and all of us have departments and we all kind of do outreach, even though they don't think it's outreach. So making the effort to go to meetings, their department meetings, making the effort to email them about once a month with things that are going on in the library, new resources, that kind of thing. And it has helped. And even just going to their department events so that they see your face and that you know that they know that you are committed to not only their students, but if they're giving a talk, go to their talk. If they're doing something, go to them. That seems to have helped a lot.
Does anybody have like print things that they hand out to faculty regarding instruction or your services that you would give out at a new faculty orientation that you would mind sharing?
Yeah, we have something that I can send. It's just a one-sheeter. That's actually what we call them, one-sheeters, and we have one for faculty, graduate students, and postdocs, and they're all pretty similar. But it really highlights some of the things that they really need to know about, things like instruction or specialized services that we keep. We don't see a tremendous amount of faculty during our orientation session or our orientation week, although they sounds like others, they have their own new student or new faculty orientation. So we can get it out that way. The library is it's like a day-long thing where they get to present, somebody from the library presents. But yeah, I can send that out by email to the list if anybody's interested. And the fortunate thing is that librarians here have a faculty status, so we're part of the Senate, and so we can push things out that way too. But that's only by virtue of our status at this point. So.
I created a brochure for our TA orientation, and the library is always slated to go last in their day-long 15-minute flash presentations. So I knew whatever I would say would go in one ear and out the other. So the brochure I created was, on one side was for your students, so everything about instruction and LibGuides, and then the other side was for you, so how to support them doing their personal research, continuing ed. And one other thing I would like to start doing, but it probably won't happen until next summer, is to actually create like a packet with maybe like a highlighter and a pen and send those to our new faculty. So actually giving them some swag to make them aware of our presence.
I think I mentioned earlier that we did our first faculty author reception this year, and it was a really kind of easy to put together event, but also pretty successful because our university doesn't do a great job of recognizing our faculty authors and the publications that they do. So we just had like punch, snacks, and a display of the books that we have that in our collection that faculty have authored. And it kind of advertised itself. And it was a really good networking opportunity for us. Like a lot of the librarians attended, and we had a chance to mingle with with the different faculty members who showed up and remind them what we're here for. So even though the purpose was to recognize faculty authors, it also like opened up some really good conversations and yeah, it was just a reminder that we're here to support them.
How did you track which faculty were publishing? Like, did they send you stuff, or did you just kind of keep your ear to the ground?
That was the hard part. We had our collection development librarians, who are kind of our department liaisons, use that term very loosely. They emailed their departments and had them send us their publications, so it's kind of self-identifying. But next year, we're going to try to do it differently, because that was a lot of work for us. So we may try to streamline that somehow. If you have any suggestions, we'd love to hear them.
Yeah, it's not real helpful, but our campus does do a daily newsletter, which we keep track of, and they post updated or new publications that they're doing, and I automatically track those and try to get them into the library.
We have 2 more minutes. Does anybody have anything, last minute thing they want to add? Okay, well, thank you very much. This was a great discussion. I hope that everyone got at least one takeaway today. You will be receiving a follow-up survey on the event. We hope you will fill it out and tell us how we could do better, or if you have suggestions for future topics, that would be also great to hear. So thank you again. And this will be, the recording will be available probably, hopefully in about 10 minutes. So any of the links that were posted out there, they should be again in the recording. So thank you.